Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Erik Finley, the Vice President and General Manager of your St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. As we gather today, we'd like to share a little music from a recent project from the SLSO called Songs of America. This project was released the week of Independence Day, and the project includes 7 musical portraits to showcase the spirit that makes St. Louis, our dear city, unique and create community connections. You can hear all of them on www.slsostories.org. We'll get started in just a minute. In the meantime, enjoy this short performance. Wow. Well, if you are not already enjoying some Blue City Deli or a nice pairing for this musical offering, I hope that got you into the spirit to talk about music and the SLSO today. Again, thank you for joining us. There are 450 of you on this call. And on behalf of the SLSO, I can say we miss seeing and making music for all of you. Today's Lunch and Learn is sponsored by Caravis, the SLSO's health coverage partner, and supported by our friends at AARP. And we express special gratitude to our 2020-2021 Classical Series sponsor, the Stewart Family Foundation. Our 2 featured guests today are actually not guests at all and need no introduction, but I'm so delighted to be moderating this discussion with our President and CEO, Marie-Hélène Bernard, and our music director, Stéphane Denève. Hello again to you both.
Hi, good afternoon. Wonderful to see you all.
What a pleasure. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Stéphane. and Marie-Hélène. Again, my name is Erik Finley. I'm lucky enough to be the Vice President and General Manager of your St. Louis Symphony, but also lucky enough to call these two individuals, these two visionaries in our field and advocates for this art form, my bosses. The three of us chat often, and I first want to share with you that the two of them always look this fantastic for every Zoom meeting we have. But we usually don't have an audience of 450 people. If this is your first lunch and learn, here's how this will work. During COVID times, the only thing we don't guarantee is the quality of your lunch. I'll ask most of the questions, but we invite you to join in too. If you scroll to the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a little chat box, and you can include your questions, comments, complaints about your lunch. We'll monitor that chat and respond to all of your questions that we can. And if we don't get to them in the discussion, we'll try to respond in the chat or follow up after the lunch and learn with more information. The other thing about those questions is because I'm moderating a discussion with my two bosses, I can't promise I'll throw any really tough ones at them if you have any of those. So beyond that, let's have some fun, and we'll talk about music and we'll talk about the SLSO. First of all, bravo, Stéphane, again for the St. Louis Blues performance. I'm still enjoying it every single time.
Well, thank you. Usually, as you know, when I start a concert, I say to everybody, either bonjour, and I get an answer, or bonsoir, depending on the time of the day. And that's the first time I have the opportunity to say both. So bonjour for you because you're in St. Louis, and bonsoir because I'm actually in Europe right now. And you did a trick already because I had no idea you didn't tell me you would show the St. Louis Blues now at the start. So I'm blushing, as you can see clearly. It's not only a summer tan because I'm an amateur jazz pianist. And it was very bold of me to dare to record this little one, you know, for a city of jazz that St. Louis is, but I had fun doing it. And I, as you certainly noticed, I did a little Beethoven tweak at the end, and that was fun to do.
Hey, you know what I loved about this video actually is that, you know, you really need kind of an upright honky-tonk bar piano for this. And that's a really nice piano you have in your house. But all you have to do now, we know, is use an iPhone to get all of those high sounds and no mid and low and really make that thing sound like a blues bar piano.
It was all planned to be, you know, no, it's technology, technology.
Thoughtful, you're always the thoughtful artistic partner.
My piano was actually out of tune. It's a nice grand piano, but still it was out of tune because very hard at the time I recorded it to have people coming to tune your piano. Anyway, so I can do more videos now. It should sound better despite the iPhone.
So we'll talk a lot about the SLSO, about music and our business and our audiences and St. Louis today. But I first wanted to just start off, you know, we're all used to getting these emails from each other that there's a lot of, I hope you're well. Are you well? Are you okay? We're so used to seeing these emails from one another. And the question that I like asking now that we're in kind of 5-6 months into COVID is, what are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What have you discovered that you would just absolutely recommend? And I want to start with asking Marie-Hélène that.
Actually, I've been reading a lot. I'm a voracious reader, and I've been enjoying reading probably a lot more during this pandemic than I typically can because my work is very demanding. Fiction, nonfiction. Nonfiction, I recommend the book that Walter Johnson published in May, which is called The Broken Hearts of America, which is about St. Louis and the history of our region, especially when it comes to racism and segregation. And I thought it was a wonderful book, a great reference to me. I learned a lot, not being from St. Louis. It enabled me to really put things in a historical context and gain a deeper understanding. Another book that I love that was a book on history, but is Erik Larson's The Splendid and the Vile, which is about Churchill and his family and British people in the 1940-41 years when the UK was entering into war with Germany. And I've learned, it was beautifully written, and it was for me a discovery. Really enjoyed it.
Wonderful, thank you for sharing that. And And Stéphane, same question for you. What are you
Yeah.
reading? What are you listening to?
Well, I listen to a lot of music, but to speak about reading as well, I have to admit, when I started the lockdown, and I thought, my God, fantastic! I will be able to read all Shakespeare again, and I didn't achieve that. I achieved Crime and Punishment of Dostoevsky, which I thought the title was very inspiring this time. And then, but I want to speak about one particular book that I read fairly recently, thanks to my dear Swedish wife. It's a Swedish author. His name is Hans Rosling, and he wrote a book called Factfulness. I'll show it to you. And I think it's quite famous. So since we have many people today with us, thank you. I hope many of you have already read it, but it's very inspiring. It's a book which explains how to actually read the world and understand the world through real facts. And somehow in this ocean of bad news everywhere, it was very refreshing to read a vision with a bit of perspective that give you the feeling that there is hope, that we can always help the world, that there is ways, and there are ways to help the world. And actually recently there have been some great improvements that we don't always acknowledge or even notice, and on big subjects as, you know, poverty or education of girls compared to education of men all over the world. The numbers are better than we may imagine. And I really love this book for giving me actually the strength to think, yes, we can change the world. And yes, there are a lot of things that are bad, that are not doing well, but we should really notice the things that are going better, and we can make this world a better place. It's absolutely possible.
Hey, this is one of the things I think I speak for us all that we love about you, is you are our eternal optimist.
Oh,
Stéphane, we're going to bottle a little Stéphane optimism for the 2021 season, which we can hand out. I thought of this as a nice gift to the wonderful people who are on this call. I think it would be a great way to start our season.
You're too kind. I'm an optimist, but I realize that sometimes when you say you're an optimist, it sounds a bit like you're naive, that you don't realize how tough the world can be, and you just only see it by one angle. And I like the idea maybe of the word possibilist. I think that it's possible. So I would like to define myself as a possibilist, and if I can actually share a little secret, I will blush again, but the nickname that my wife used for me, she calls me Sunshine, because she feels I'm positive and full of light. So, well, that's very pretentious of me to reveal that to you myself, but yes, I like to see things on the positive side.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'll quickly answer a question that came up here in the chat box. Since you both mentioned books, about what someone asked what I'm listening to. A few things come to mind recently. Our dear friend James Ennis, who's a frequent collaborator with Stéphane and with the orchestra, has released a wonderful series of Bach sonatas and partitas and Isai paired together, and it's all available via James's website. If you Google James Ennis, E-H-N-E-S, just such a beautiful player, and he's recording these fantastic concerts in his home. And I've been listening to a little jazz and pop music as well. The jazz artist Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, and a kind of a crossover folk-based artist by the name of Rhiannon Giddens. Maybe we'll include all of these, the books that Marie-Hélène and Stéphane recommended, and a couple of these artists. Maybe we'll include all of these in a chat or a little follow-up with all of you. So thank you both for that. Speaking of optimism, I want to know, Stéphane, what are the positive things that have come out of this time for you?
Well, actually, a lot of things were luckily, and I feel very privileged, positive for me. I realize how wonderful it is to spend time with your family, because I'm normally always like a sailor going overseas all the time. And I love them. I have a daughter, Alma, and with my wife, we had a lot of quality time together. We created a routine called the walk o'clock. at 5 o'clock every day, where we go near our home. Luckily, there are some woods and some fields, and we have a very nice 1 hour routine together. And I could see for the first time in my life the spring day after day. And it has been a revolution. I was supposed to conduct the Rite of Spring of Stravinsky to end our season. Mm-hmm. And I feel now, when we will reprogram that, thanks to you, my dear Erik, I feel I will do a better version of it, possibly, because I've been so inspired by the power of nature, the feeling that nature is beyond good and evil, that just this power of renewal, this life force there was so strong. And in Belgium, actually, the spring was surprisingly strong and sunny and full of light. So that has been something quite wonderful. And as you notice, I played the piano more than usual. So I started again to feel some muscle in my fingers, which was a good feeling. And well, you know, I learned that I could be retiring and still feel I have something to do with my life. So that was, but I don't plan to retire. Actually, I don't plan to retire ever, because of course, to counterbalance and this positive side, I miss music and conducting so much. So I will never retire, but if I had to, I could do something with my life.
Yeah, please don't. We're going to keep you too busy to retire. It's just not going to be possible, I'm sorry to say. Marie-Hélène, what about you? What positive things have come out of this time? Any new routines you've developed?
I had early routines that I have sadly abandoned. I think the one aspect of this crisis is forcing us into continuing to stretch the boundaries of our creativity. And our orchestra has been so deeply invested in the community. And for us is to continue to reshape or shape or further deepen the way we impact with the work we do, the community, but also how as creators, because with Stéphane, we talked about this all the time. You know, Stéphane mentioned being an optimist and a possibilist, right? So I think the concept of the art of possibility and how this crisis has had us really rethink the way we're going to present next season, but also think ahead of what in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I think that's a wonderful aspect of the work we do together, is that I strongly believe that we're stretching that muscle of creativity. And I know that you and Stéphane with me and the team are being tested really in ways that are actually revealing, I think, the wonderful facets of how music can come to heal, to, you know, educate, inform, to impact. And I see our role as very important as an orchestra, the role of a social agent, whether it's change, whether it's transforming, whether it's enriching a community. I mean, to me, this pandemic has really put a spotlight on this aspect of our work.
I love that. Yeah. And it's really, we keep talking about, you know, what are the things that we want to keep as an organization from this time, and the creativity that this is sparking with the organizations. And that kicks me into my next question for Stéphane, actually. But I want to draw everyone's attention to the chat box for one moment. We have a wonderful list of suggestions coming from a variety of people involved in the call for good reading material. So we'll all be stealing some of this. Thank you all for that. And thank you for participating in the chat. Keep it coming. A beautiful quote from Gail Jackson about Gloria Steinem responding to a question about whether she had any hope that things would get better. And she said, absolutely, hope is a plan. I love this. Really, really beautiful. Thank you, Gail, for that. Along the lines of what Marie-Hélène is saying, Stéphane, you know, you all, you're a little bit ahead of where we are in terms of spread subsiding in Europe, and some of the plans that you see arts organizations putting together. And I'm curious to know, you know, just a bit about your reflections on the way this pandemic is changing the way arts organizations are programming, and for those already returning to concertizing, and tell us a little bit about what you are seeing as commonalities in the concert format, the concert experience? And what do you think maybe we should hold on to beyond this?
It's a very, very good question. As a prologue to my answer, I would like to tell you that a lot of people have the feeling that we are now in a new world and it will never come back to another world that it was before. And I would like to doubt that. I think that we cannot suddenly throw, the whole past and say like, oh, of course, as Marie-Hélène said brilliantly, this situation has forced us to imagine new creative answers, but that doesn't mean that what we did before was not good. And I still totally hope that we will come back to the rapport we had socially with people, the physicality of our rapport with people. I think we are human. This will come back, and I think the programming also that we used to do will of course come back in some ways. But what we should keep is this idea that we can mix repertoire more. And of course, right now, we all over the world, and we try to see what repertoire we can offer with a smaller orchestra due to the social distanciation. And apart from Vienna, in Vienna, it's actually incredible. They decided to have another strategy to test everybody all the time, and then to not have any distance between the musicians, to basically play the repertoire already with big orchestra on stage and no distance. But apart from Vienna, quite everywhere, people have decided to respect the distance between the musician. And that's what I will do in September as well here in Brussels. So instead of 100 musicians, basically it's between 40 and 50. I will do a concert in Munich with the Bavarian Radio, and it will be about 45 musicians. In Brussels here, we can do 50 for now. And because of that, we wanted to explore some repertoire that we will not always play, and also some very smaller ensembles as well to offer variety, because we want, of course, to have all the part of the orchestra to play. So if you play only repertoire for, let's say, smaller orchestra, you will not use some of the percussion players, some of the harp, some of the woodwinds and brass that normally we use, and we cannot play only classical music for smaller orchestra. So then we play some serenade for winds, we play some pieces that are only for brass, only for percussions, to just offer variety and offer to the musicians the possibility to be on stage. And that is really interesting, because it obliges you to imagine another dramaturgy of the concert, and I like that. So I hope that we can continue with this idea of mixing indeed the flavors and be usually more bold about the size of the orchestra we offer, and mix it, chamber music with, when we can, mix with big symphonic piece. So that's what I think we'll keep from this time. But I still can't wait to be back with a full Mahler orchestra and a big chorus, all cramped on stage, so close to each other that they all kind of feel the vibration of everybody, and that we all kind of feel as one enormous body with 200 heads or something. This is still something specific that we have to come back to at some point.
I think, to add, Stéphane, to what you said, I think that the format, also the way we can experiment with format, shorter concerts or vignettes of performances that are in between interludes of conversations, or I think that you value, as we do, the component of our work that is learning about the music and learning about the human condition through music. And I think I'm excited about these opportunities, which are also partly because you had started a series last year, Crafted, which offered that concept, right, of a social friendly time before then a 1-hour program with you speaking to the audience. And it was to make audiences more comfortable and to deepen their understanding of one work that you presented to them. So it's interesting that last year, before the pandemic, we had started this concept, which I'm hoping we can continue in this new, revised format.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that. Marie-Hélène, I just wanted to ask you a little bit, because we're talking about smaller ensembles and, the necessity that this time brings to adapt and space ourselves out on stage a little bit. And one of the things that we just heard of Stéphane, this highly successful project, Songs of America this summer, based on the reaction to that and other offerings, one of the things we're talking about this fall is the role of media and digital offerings during this time, and how this might evolve long term. I'm just curious to hear a little bit more from you about that, about what we learned from this project and where it might take us.
So first of all, we learned that there's a huge audience out there for music. You know, that there is a huge audience for the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, and an audience. I mean, the number of newcomers and the number of people who have watched that series of 6 videos, I mean, the numbers were amazing. We had over 300,000 people. So there is a recognition that music touches people, and that classical music is not just for a small number of people. I think the storytelling behind this project was very important. The fact that we love our city, we were honoring important city landmarks, we were honoring music by Americans in a context of social changes that is deeply disturbing, and also that is awakening our role as music creators to say, how can we use music to engage into a social dialogue, and how do we make this community better? And what's our role? And I know Stéphane is deeply committed to this, and as he gets to know St. Louis, I think it's for us to continue to foster local talent, to continue to foster American music, but to also recognize the wonderful assets we have, but that there's a lot of work to do. And socially, I think this awakening, while deeply disruptive and hurtful, and you know, I think it has shaken the foundation in a good way, is how do we use music to engage into that dialogue? And I like this connection of dialogue and storytelling, because that's how Stéphane conceived his entire 2021 season, and that's how he is shaping new engagement this fall with the restrictions that we know.
Thank you for that. And it brings me to one of my questions for Stéphane, which is you talk a lot about dialogue and using programming as a vehicle to spark dialogue about topics that are relevant in our time, about how some of these pieces that were written in the early 20th century or the 19th century, or even the 18th century that we perform are still relevant and have great meaning today. What does this mean to you, music to spark dialogue? To what end? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the fact is, I don't want classical music to be just a museum where you look at something and it's just part of the past. Luckily, we always perform a score live, which means that we give our energy, our meaning, our intention. And when you speak about a universal masterwork, what is fascinating is it is timeless. And therefore, you can really reinterpret and put it in a different context, the context of today. And I feel I'm very alive, and I want to make music for people that are alive. And it's amazing, actually, that we can use music of the past as well as music of today to express the world we are in. And in fact, if we compare, by the way, with museum, I love that today the exhibitions that are made are so creative, and they give you, I mean, you have also explanation like audio guides, like often on the wall, a lot of information, much more than before. I mean, only, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, you would have just the painter, the name, for instance, that's it. Now you have everything is, you know, put in relation with a dramaturgy, and you discover this piece before this piece, and all that creates a dialogue already between the different pieces of art, and that's what programming is about. Is also putting these different pieces together and create something meaningful with it. And for me, music is not only an entertainment at all. Of course, it's art. It's something that can be transformative, that can change us, but it's the way we present it. So indeed, my focus is to always explain, if I can, the piece and kind of not fear the kind of educational part also of what we do to help people enter in the meaning of the piece, and they can then discuss it. Very often with you, we speak about the order of a program, and we want to put a particular piece before the intermission that people can discuss it at intermission. And I really want indeed that, that there is always a connection with what we do and with the world and with the audience, and that it reflects what we want to express. And there are big societal subjects that are very tangible today that we can address through music. So, so that's what it is for me, actually. That's just always focus and try to convey a way to create discussions, to create ideas, and that the experience of the concert go beyond the concert. Yeah. Of course, certain pieces can help a lot, like Beethoven 9 or Malo 2. Those are pieces that helps tremendously to create this discussion.
Yeah, and Erik, I apologize, I did not really answer your question earlier when you asked about the role of media, and obviously as a platform, it gives us an amazing opportunity that we are pursuing in this context. Today's conversation is an example of how we can gather over 400 friends and discuss topics like this, which we probably would not have initiated before. But as I'm listening to Stéphane, it goes back to the importance of the live experience, which is unique. Yeah. So I'm a believer that while the media and the digital world are extraordinary tools that can also shape the narrative and shape the dialogue that Stéphane is talking about, yet to be able to connect together in one space, to the live experience of live music is really truly unique and very, very special. And that's what came out from that survey, that our that 1,300 audience members responded to this June, that the message was loud and clear about their deep love for the St. Louis Symphony, but also the fact that they missed live performances, that they missed really the experience of being in a hall with Stéphane and our orchestra and discovering with us the depth of the programming we're offering. So that piece was really informing also the programming for this fall.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that anytime Stéphane presents a program or talks about music, it makes me more curious about not just the music, but about other things as well, about when this was written, about the connection between composers, the connection between countries, this whole concept that we had this last year about this arch bridging cultures, and this term edutainment I love, and your commitment to this. Along those lines, you know, I think there's a wonderful opportunity for the SLSO. We've talked a lot about our role as a leader in education right now. And Marie-Hélène, I'd love to just hear a little bit more from you about your philosophy for the SLSO's education programs and what role they might play this fall and during this time.
Yeah, and actually back in April, when we were facing with concert cancellations, right away our education team reshaped programming in order to create tools for teachers and parents. I mean, a lot of parents found themselves at home having to monitor their children's schooling and teaching. And so these tools became really, really essential. If you go on our website, slso.org, under education, there's a whole section that are tools to basically teach music to children at very age levels. So what we're doing right now is, knowing that most schools are going to a virtual format, is to continue to deliver sequential music education throughout the fall, and to basically shape those programs in a digital format that we can bring to students, whether it's live distance learning or whether there are projects that we are taping in advance and giving to teachers to use as education tools. There's a series of instrument videos that we produced in March that will be continued, and these are meant to be accessible, easy conversations between children and musicians about their instruments. So we find all kinds of ways to create that curriculum and to be a resource to teachers. We have an extraordinary network of teachers, over 400 of them in the region. We work with over 255 schools, and our commitment to schools, to parents and children and teachers, is to ensure that we are here for them, that we are a resource, and that they come to us to find what they need to make sure that their students are continuing to be exposed to music until they can come back to the hall and experience the orchestra live. And these programs will very much continue in the future as well.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Yeah, we're getting some comments in the chat as well about how much the pre-concert conversations are enjoyed, and we know that you've told us that, and that's why this series has been born. That's why we're looking at some other series in the fall that have to do with education across not just the education of young people, as Marie-Hélène is talking about, but across all ages as well. Even with the Songs of America series, we thought it was important to share historical background and some tiny program notes with each one of these. Also, it's a commitment across really everything that we do. Picking up on a couple of other things I'm seeing in the chat right now. Thank you, all of you, for these wonderful contributions and questions that we're seeing. Are those scores on the bookshelves behind Stéphane? A quick aside. Stéphane?
Oh, I can show you a bit more. So this is a lot of piano score. Then you see the yellow things are actually pocket score when I was a child. I mean, when I was a teenager. And then this little sculpture here is actually a total that my daughter did with a professional sculptor. And well, I mean, you know, there are opera. I have, yes, this is actually not the literature shelf, that's the other room. It is only indeed books about music or scores. So it's a big part of my life. And I'll be very, very honest with you. Normally over there, you see there are a lot of CDs of mine and some other score. A lot of them are actually a modern score, and you see some prizes over there, like some Diapason d'Or, some Grammy nomination, and I actually removed them. They were there, but I removed them because I thought it looked pretentious. So I removed them, and now I do even worse because I pointed that they are over there. So well, I felt tremendously. But yes, this is in front of me. There is a huge TV, and that's where we watch. My wife, our daughter, and I a lot of movies because we love movies, and voila. So yes.
There you go. Well, thank you for that little inside look into your home there. So there you have it. That is a bookshelf full of scores. Speaking of scores, speaking of composers, I want to ask you each about artists during this time and how this is creating you know, a revived sense of creativity, and what may come out of this that is sort of not memorabilia, but art that we can remember this time from. And Stéphane, I'm curious what you're hearing from your composer friends.
Yeah.
What impact you think this pandemic may have on music being written, what they're working on. Are they delving into huge projects that they otherwise would not, or are things just, is it kind of business as usual?
It's fascinating because no composer has the same answer as the other. Everybody's different, and I'm extremely curious to see what will be indeed in the scores. I mean, if something will be there, but for instance, I spoke with Anna Klein recently, and she was actually very positive. It has been a big momentum for her. She could focus on only composing, and it has been, she told me, very positive for her. I have a very dear French composer friend called Guillaume Connaisson. We performed some of his music already. I love his music too. And he told me that for him, it's business as usual, as you say, because doesn't change anything. So he doesn't feel that the possible, of course, anxiety, sadness, I mean, you know, that we all felt actually interact in his composing at all. I know that Esa-Pekka Salonen said it has been not a very productive time for him, that he could not really concentrate on composing. So it's very different. And what is fascinating is that sometimes we have this romantic vision that the composer basically writes the emotion he has inside of him or her right away. And this is actually usually extremely wrong. When you're a real composer, you compose every day because you have to, because it's in you, you have just to do. And I wouldn't say it's a job, but it becomes just something that you have to do, which can be surprisingly disconnected. And in the history of music, we know that Beethoven or Mozart wrote music that was totally different to the dramas they were, or the good time. Same for Mahler. We know that he wrote actually the most tragic symphony, the Sixth Symphony, in a moment which was the most, apparently, who knows, but apparently the most positive time of his life. And I think it's actually somehow disconnected, but I'm curious about the zeitgeist, about the feeling that we have all felt, and if that will actually be still something that we will hear in the pieces created today, but we'll know that only later, obviously. I'm very curious.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. The next question that just popped up in the chat box was the next question that I was going to ask Marie-Hélène from Kathleen. How are SLSO musicians faring during this pandemic? What have they been doing? Marie-Hélène, your brother's a cellist. You know, everybody's experiencing this a little bit differently. What are you hearing from our musicians, and what is this time like for musicians everywhere?
You know, I think it's challenging, but as artists, I think they're extraordinarily resilient, and they have, several of them, of course, have done projects with us. They have projects, they did projects from the comfort of their home. They have participated in Songs of America. They're really getting active. Some have done series on front yards. I mean, they've done a variety of things. Some have used the time for reflection, further study, as Stéphane mentioned earlier, to spend time with family. I think the common denominator is that as artists, they miss making music for an audience. So there's this, their desire to go back to it is great. And obviously we know that, as we are going to share next, the plans a bit for the fall of 2021, that they understand that this institution is focused on their health and safety, so that whatever we do will be done with their safety in mind, and also providing the best possible conditions. And we experimented with the Songs of America this summer. And your team, Erik, was very, very prepared that we have building procedures, and they knew exactly where to go, what to do, what were the protocols, and how we would film on stage and perform, social distancing. And the rule applies to artists, but also to audiences. So I just want to, I saw a few questions about this, but we have building procedures. The city is in a process of confirming and affirming all of the directives that we put together, that when we resume live performances at Powell Hall with an audience, with sizes that are acceptable for safety conditions, that I want the public to rest assured that we are ready, and we have all kinds of protocols in place, which we implemented earlier in April. So the building is ready. Essentially, we have protocols, and we are going to take all the safety measures possible for both the artist on stage, including Stéphane and guest, and also the audience.
I must say, I'm very impressed by our great musicians, because I mean, they contributed so much in videos. They did so many initiatives themselves to offer music and to the community, and this is remarkable. I mean, so it's a time where it's so difficult to continue to focus, of course, on music. I mean, a lot of people had to take care of their children. We were not going to school. And despite that, to see all the musicians being so focused on continuing to practice, a lot of good news about that. Just people really concentrating on their instrument and their companion. That's very heartwarming, I must say, to see. Yeah. And I'm very proud, really, with all the digital content that they offered.
Thank you.
Well, this kind of it's really a perfect pivot to some of my next questions. We're getting a lot of questions in the chat about kind of the reveal of what our plans are for this fall, and you're hearing some of it, some continuation and expansion of some of the digital projects we've done already. the educational offerings. We will continue and even expand all of our education and youth programs will be delivered digitally this fall, which has, of course, some tiny disadvantages, but many advantages in terms of reach as well. The impact of these will truly be incredible as those are starting to come together. But another component of what we're working on, and we began working on over the summer, was programming for chamber orchestra and mining this repertoire that with a full symphony orchestra playing these masterworks we know and love all the time, we often, there's a little part of the repertoire that we neglect that we'll be accessing a little more frequently now before things return completely to being able to put a full orchestra on the stage. But another little component to this is for us will be chamber music as well. And along those lines, Stéphane, I wanted to just ask you, we hear the orchestra sometimes referred to as large-scale chamber music. And I want to hear from you a little bit about your experience with chamber music, how that relates to your work as a conductor and how you lead a large ensemble. And one of the things that, some of the things that you think will come out of working with smaller ensemble sizes, such as a chamber orchestra during this time.
Well, I had one experience in July here in Brussels. We did a test, a rehearsal. We played actually not a chamber piece. We played the Beethoven 7th Symphony with a reduced string section and with the distancing. So actually in that case, it was pretty big, almost, I think, 6 feet between each musicians. And that was quite fascinating because every musician start to hear their sound individually so much more than usual. You have to imagine that when you play the violin into a section of 30 violin players, you start to act as a body, and it's sometimes difficult to really hear yourself totally within the sea of sound around you. And it was, of course, revelatory, and it was not always easy because people just suddenly felt no help from the group. There was no wave like on the sea to just bring you to the next bar together. But at the same time, it obliged people to listen even more and to listen to new things. And that is actually very interesting and very creative. And I think that you have to always make something positive out of any compromise. And I believe we can search something. We discovered, for instance, during our rehearsal that playing louder to compensate the emptiness around you was the wrong answer. And the opposite was to search into lower dynamics in order to actually be able to hear yourself alone and still hear people that are distant from yourself. And that was an all different way of thinking the dynamics. And that was very, very good exercise somehow. And for me, speaking about your chamber music, every member of an orchestra should and usually does at the high level that the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra is, play chamber music all the time, as well as playing in orchestra. This is critical, really. And what is good, of course, now is that in this situation, people will be engaged to do it even more. And some people that maybe do not as often chamber music as they used to will have an opportunity to do that. And it can only be good because I consider a symphony orchestra as a large chamber music group. It has to have the same quality of listening. And I always say to the orchestra, the way to improve is just about the listening, about just being always more aware of what's going on around and to always more connect, this very strange imaginary lines between an instrument and another, sometimes at the opposite side of the stage. And so I think it will be a good exercise and something positive for the listening of the orchestra, what we will propose. And I would like to say, of course, that you, Marie-Hélène, and Erik, we spend a lot of time thinking about programming, and we had already prepared some programs with slightly reduced orchestra and slightly shorter programs, but reflecting on what we should have been played. And we were very proud of all those programs we put together. And then during July, we had to renounce to start them in September. And so it's time where we need to be very flexible and very quick to answer the restrictions or the diminution, hopefully, of the restrictions. And so I'm so sorry. I would love to say right away what we have found and what we could have done from September. It will be postponed, hopefully, maybe only to October, maybe to November. We'll see. But I hope that we will be able to still offer on stage some concert with audience during the fall.
That's great. Let me add just specification there. So we announced recently that we're postponing the September 16th Forest Park concert to the spring. We don't have a date yet. We will inform you as soon as Forest Park and the SLSO choose a date. We will present the free Forest Park concert. It typically draws an audience of over 10,000 people. So the city was not comfortable proceeding with such a large gathering in Forest Park so soon in September. And as Stéphane said, we had reprogrammed every single subscription week of the fall from September to December. We know we're not going to have any choral activity until 2021. That's something that's very important to share with you. And of course, our in unison chorus and chorus are aware of this. Choral singing right now, gathering a large group of singers in a chorus is still deemed too risky. And we had plans with no more than 40 players on stage, no more than 60 minutes, social distance on stage. Several people ask about audience. Our team in box office has a map that they develop in a software where if we were to open a concert to audiences, that audiences would be ticketed seats that are approved by our infectious disease specialists in terms of social distancing. So it's all been approved and safe. Currently, the city would enable us to have, I think, up to 75% of an audience, which is 75% of 2,600, which we feel is too large. So if we have performances with audiences early in the fall, so we're looking at September right now, and soon we'll look at October. We announced last week the hybrid progressive approach, and what it means is today, we don't have specific programs to talk about for September. We're working on it. We'll announce it soon, but we're going to take 1 month at a time. And if the conditions improve, we're going to go back to the programming that Erik and our team with Stéphane had put together for the fall, which was preserving the spirit of most of the programming. So we've been basically essentially spending the summer making lots of plans that are not seeing the light today because of the increased rates in infection. So the question of the role of digital and how much streaming we're going to do, we're going to be able to refine those plans by the end of very soon. So you'll be able to hear live performances or later or live or on digital or radio broadcast will continue, and our program on PBS will continue as well. So we're going to find various ways to bring you music, but the plans we had put together cannot be executed because of additional restrictions.
Thank you.
So I hope it adds clarity to those of you who had more specific questions about programming and activity.
Yeah, there's been wonderful work that's been done by the members of our team and the infectious disease experts and epidemiologists from a team at WashU to put together a wonderful plan for the city. We're getting ready to welcome people back, and we're cautiously watching the environment around us to make sure the environment around us is ready to welcome everyone back safe. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone will see a structure of recurring events, such as this one, that you can access and access your SLSO during this time, but also some things that may get announced on a little later timeline depending on the circumstances. So it may be a chamber orchestra program, it may be a chamber music concert, it may be an outdoor concert mixed with, as Marie-Hélène mentions, the hybrid approach, mixed with digital content as well. So it's we see it as an exciting opportunity. And one of the things that I love Marie-Hélène has said and Stéphane has said is it's about what we can do for our audiences, not about what we can't do right now. So we're viewing this as an opportunity to just serve you all in a little different way during this time.
And also the Pulitzer series will continue. At this point, the team is looking at capturing 4 different works and continuing to engage audiences, but probably not performances in person at the Pulitzer, not for the time being. And our hope really is that the situation will continue to improve over the fall so that we can resume full activities in January. But for the time being, we're going to bring a variety of programming and experiences that we hope you will find fulfilling, and more online lectures, conversations like the one we have today.
Well, there have been so many great questions in the chat. Thank you all for these thoughtful questions and your input. We'll answer as many as we can that we have not already. It's really wonderful to have so many of you join us today. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you, Stéphane, for joining us during your dinner time, your dinner and learn here. Always wonderful to see you. And Marie-Hélène, we've heard from so many patrons during this time, from filling out surveys, and the generosity of people has just been incredible. So many people asking how they can help right now. Share.
Absolutely. I mean, the support has been really truly remarkable. Our fiscal year ends on August 31st, and we still have a challenge going on. In the new fiscal year, which starts September 1st, we will be again encouraging everyone to continue their philanthropic support. This is essential. 2/3 of our budget relies on very generous contributions from individuals, foundation. I think this is where the greatest impact comes. And I know all of you who have subscriptions, I want to thank you for your patience and your trust in our work. I want you to know that we are going to shape programming for you. So we appreciate everything you've done. If you chose to give back the value of your subscription or hold on and to your subscription, we will assure you that we will deliver on our promise to bring you a great variety of musical experiences, and we're really deeply grateful for your support.
Great. And just want to thank you again to our Lunch and Learn sponsors, Caravis and AARP, and to our 2020-2021 Classical Series sponsor, the Stewart Family Foundation. Thank you for joining us today and for your continued support and care for the SLSO. Please mark your calendars for the next Lunch and Learn on September 23rd, at noon. Again, we'll start a series of discussion about the critical role that women have played in the SLSO and how the orchestra is working to elevate voices through music. We will continue our commitment to the programming that we originally planned for this fall, and the theme we plan to bring to you through this programming, this dialogue. And we know that we can do that through our other offerings in this progressive hybrid approach. Stay tuned for more of a reveal coming next month as we announce more programming to you. And thank you all. We wish you good health.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you, Stéphane.
Thank you very much. I miss you all so much. Big hugs and kisses. And music is our oxygen, and we'll continue to breathe together, really.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Erik.